Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome. My name is Katie Gideon, and I will be the on-camera facilitator for tonight's February monthly setup social. I am dialing in from Edinburgh, Scotland, and I'm so excited to be here. I want to give a huge shout out to my co-facilitator who is joining us from Texas, Jennifer O. You will see her name in the chat, but we are excited to be here. We are Team Texas, former Team Texas. And I was feeling a little nostalgia. That's why we got out the kind of a country song, but always makes me happy. And I am so excited to see some returning socialers in the chat. Welcome. It's great to see you again. Seeing some folks that had also taken maybe a little bit of a break from Silk and Sonder. We are glad that you're back, and we are always here when you need us. And then I was starting to see some maybe first-time folks. So just double check in the chat that it is set to everyone. That is where you can engage with the entire social attendees. If it is set to host and panelists, which unfortunately is the default, that comes to myself and Jennifer O. And so we can always answer those questions there, but we definitely want to make sure that you are engaging with everyone if that is what you want to do. So in the chat, let us know if this is your first social, if this is your first social in a while, or if you are new and you don't even know what the social really is. Because I want to say welcome. There is a certain cadence to some of these socials, can be a little bit of a sensory overload, but don't worry, take a big deep breath. Don't get overwhelmed. You can start small, but the chat may go a little quickly just depending on how many people we've got there. So maybe you want to mute the chat. Maybe I'm a little too much for you. Maybe the music is a little too much. You can mute that, because at the end of the day, we want you to have set aside this time to use this to whatever you want to do. No one is going to be grading your journal. No one is going to be looking over your shoulder to see what you have come and or accomplished. Maybe you just need here because you had a little bit of a rough day. You had a rough January. You're excited about February. Maybe February is a little rough. And so you're just wanting that extra kind of love and support and thoughtfulness as you head into the new month. But however it is and however you have come, we are glad that you're here. And we cannot wait to spend the next hour or so with each and every one of you as we set up our journal for February. So as always, please be kind and courteous to yourself and others. No promotions or spam. Respect everyone's privacy. No hate speech or bullying. Limit repetitive product and accessory questions, though we do love the small conversations around here now and then. Definitely around pens, pencils, colored pencils, stickers, washi tape, all the really fun accessory stuff. But then also we may redirect some of our customer care inquiries to our team, hello@silkandsonder.com. So you can certainly feed some of those questions to us and we can certainly pass them along. But when it comes to account specific or some of those things, we unfortunately do not have that information. And then as always, Sonder Socials are a tool to help elevate your emotional health through the power of community. But you are responsible for your own emotions, well-being, and decisions. So this is a very loving, open community. But if, again, you've had a little bit of a rough day, a rough week, a rough month, a rough start of the year, we hold that space for you. But we are always wanting to celebrate the wins with everyone, as well as acknowledge some of those lower points for everybody. So if you need to set up some of those mental and emotional barriers, please do so. We are not here to negatively impact the rest of your week or the rest of your days. We are here to just, set aside focus so that you can work on that self-care journey, and maybe get some inspiration, get some ideas, or even just that little bit of encouragement that you need. So we are jumping into our new theme for the month. February is admiration, which I do think is a lovely, lovely theme for the month of February. I think it ties very much into the kind of expressing admiration, expressing love, expressing being proud of. And so I found a couple of these quotes that I liked. And I think it's a good reminder to, if there's a quality you admire in someone else, tell them. It's always just a simple act. It's a simple smile. I still think back to when I first moved to Houston in my apartment complex. I was wearing what I thought was kind of a new dress. It was fun. It was exciting. And some lady rolled down her window and said, "That's a great dress." And it made my day. I had no idea who she was, any of those things. And it was just that like sweet interaction that I definitely got a little bit more of like a pep in my step. So I feel like I try to also kind of send that, vibes out into the world. So if you see something, definitely say something. not in the weird DSA realm, but if you see something that you like, tell them that you like it. But at the same time, admiring someone else's beauty without questioning your own, it's one of those, I feel like it's that fine line of, being excited and being impressed and being proud of something without kind of tipping too far into the jealousy and the put down status. So I just want to kind of keep that kind of idea, at least in my head, because I'm certainly one to dwell on the negative. I always look for the positive and I look for the optimism, but at the same time, I will be the loudest little voice in the back of my head, saying the exact opposite or wanting to compare myself to others. So I always think it's really a fine line, but I think all the thoughts that are worth considering as we move in. So you want to put in the chat kind of your thoughts on admiration. I would love to hear it, especially if you maybe aren't connecting to admiration and if you're repurposing it. Our last month's theme of prosperity was not something that I could really connect with, so I repurposed it and made it wholeness. And that had fed just so much more into my goals for this year and all those things. So I was really, really thrilled. And that was kind of the first time that I had done kind of a big shift from the theme, but still on brand. So love all of these thoughts. And if you need, again, some further inspiration when it comes to the month's theme, always recommend looking at Mayha's letter. Some of the things that I kind of felt connected to was that deeper sense of appreciation for the people and experience that shape our lives. That's just a simple thing of telling everybody, they're doing a good job. You're proud of them. You're happy for them. Just kind of maybe that extra boost. And at the same time, I feel like it shouldn't be as, queued up. I feel like there's almost like a spontaneity that can be added to it, and just I'm kind of like I don't know, I've just found a little bit more satisfaction in sharing those things a little bit more openly. Looking back on some of my chats with some of my really close friends, we've definitely expressed that we're proud of each other a lot more than I think I had seen in a while. And that was just something that kind of naturally came about. So I like that that is something that is now moving more into even my everyday life. And then that idea of feeling the admiration, but we don't always express it. So making sure that that's kind of forward thinking in some of these areas. And then I also liked the idea of the made it criteria. You want to admire kind of your mentors and all of those things. But when do we actually shift into that made it criteria? Do you have that kind of standpoint? I mean, I still think I am kind of young, dumb, and in my 20s, and I am well into my 30s. So even I haven't officially shifted into that made it category. So I do have a little bit of a hard time of kind of stepping into that mentor role, even though I think, well, points I probably could be. So it's kind of understanding what your made it criteria is, and if it's something that is maybe hindering you in expressing some proud and admiration and all those things. And then I just genuinely love the idea, celebrate the small acts, quiet strength, and power of acknowledgement. I love the idea of finding magic in ordinary days. And so I feel like this is one of those that, February obviously has Valentine's Day, and that can be a big holiday. And there are a lot of feelings usually associated with that. And so being able to kind of build up the little pieces to that to kind of maybe take a little pressure off of that, I think is really great. But I think those are certainly actionable things that we can incorporate in our day-to-day routine. And I always love a good theme when we can make it a little bit more step-by-step actionable. Makes my day. So with that, we are now going to move into our agenda. So we're going to do the monthly acrostic poem on page 19. We're going to then reflect on January, then set up our February intentions, and then try and pull those things all together with those moods and habit trackers. So get ready, buckle up, let's do it. So turn to page 19 in your February journal. What are some things that come to mind when you think of the word admiration? Don't second guess yourself. This is just kind of a nice little brain dump, as we refer to it. So don't edit yourself. Don't think too hard. Don't think too much. And then just write it down. Give yourself your permission to kind of go with what you feel when it comes to admiration. And so try to come up with 10 words or phrases. And this is where it can get really, really creative. They can be definitely the word that starts with all of those 10 letters, or maybe you want to make some adjustments. Maybe your first word really doesn't want to start with an A. Maybe there's an A at like the second or third letter. So you can start to kind of weave this poem around it. And I highly encourage you to get creative with this. But being fully understanding that poems are not everybody's things, we have another kind of alternate idea as well. So here are some examples. These two are kind of AI generated with a little twist on it. And I find those as really good starting points because even sometimes I just don't have the brain power to think of some of those words, especially when they start. So I feel like these were always good points to start. These are some great examples that were provided in the Silk and Sonder app. And don't worry, I will be showing examples for all of the sections. And then when I go off camera, I will go back to those slides. But if you want us to go back or go to a different slide, let us know in the chat and we'll make those adjustments. And so then again, if maybe poems are not for you or you're just not feeling the poetic vibe, Jennifer O came up with this really great idea of still wanting to like acknowledge the previous month and then shifting into that new month, because that's kind of the time and space that we use for the acrostic poem, is trying to figure out how do we feel about it. And so another thing that you can do is you can turn to a blank page and essentially write a letter to January. The one on the left is obviously an example from previous months where maybe it's a goodbye, a thank you, a don't let the door hit you on the way out January. But there's some kind of same sort of like reprieve of being able to express that. And then acknowledge maybe you're excited about February, maybe you are not as excited about February and you just need to kind of lay some ground rules for February. But I like the idea of personifying some of these things, turn those months into a person so you can take a little bit of control, manifest some of those things, but also acknowledge some of those kind of good, bad, and everything in between, similar to some of our reflections. So I'm going to stop talking, give you guys some time to work on page 19 or on a blank page if you're going the letter route, but would love to see are your thoughts and feelings on acrostic poem, thoughts and feelings on admiration if you want to share them, or maybe if you do something a little bit different. But we will see you soon. Welcome back, everyone. And I know this one can be certainly one of those. I find the poem certainly tough. And I don't know if it's because poem not my thing and I've already just talked myself out of it, or if it's another one of those of like the theme maybe isn't quite the inspiration of what it needs or what I want it to be. But what's great about these is you can always come back to this. This is just kind of a nice intro into the social getting started. We love a good kind of beginning prompt, but we also know that sometimes it'll flow, sometimes it won't. Don't force it, but you can always come back to it. And what's really fun with them being so many letters is maybe it's a goal that you can kind of think of to do, one of the sentences kind of each week as you move through there. Or maybe again, it's just kind of moment of inspiration, which is why I've kind of shifted a little bit into the letter writing kind of thing. And so that's one of those that I think it's always interesting what pops up when the inspiration hits or even when it doesn't. But we are now going to move into the monthly planner portion. So this is going to be again your February journal. Um, Please join me on page 8 in that February journal. And don't worry if you don't have your journal yet, you can take notes. Get those if you're doing this on a computer, the screen grab's available or your phone out, all of those things. But the opportunity to kind of look and reflect on the previous month is a good way to kind of, again, close that out. Maybe you had a great January. Maybe you had a not so great January. I still feel like January was really, really long. So I always laugh at that and kind of the feeling of, time being relative and all those things. So it's one of those things. But being able to reflect on it, I think is also just a great practice because you can acknowledge some of those wins, the challenges, favorite moments, but then it also can pull into that. What do you want to start, stop, and continue? And so there are a couple different ways that we can do that. And again, sometimes it's just the putting it out there into the universe, making the power of pen to paper, just so that you can put it there so it takes up a little less space in your brain sometimes. So looking at those wins, that's going to be something you did that made you smile, made you happy, an accomplishment, or even just maybe a shift in mindset, a shift in emotions, kind of those ideas there. Challenges, already seeing that some people have quite a few challenges. Those for me do tend to come a little bit quicker, but it's also kind of a little bit of a practice of putting them there and then trying not to carry them forward. So a little bit of that, letting it in, but then letting it go. And so that's maybe something that didn't quite go right, something out of your control, the stumbling block or frustration. These can certainly be the rosebud thorn exercises if you did those with us in January. And then as always, for some of those favorite moments, you can certainly use your phone. Like I said, this isn't a test. And even if you want to consider it a test, it's an open book, open notes, phone a friend, all of those things. So, you can certainly use this to do that. And just because there are all those lines there does not mean you need to fill them all out. I certainly have found some times where it's like I got one win, I got one challenge, and maybe one favorite moment. And that's just because of, the month I had or the month I didn't have, or even just the brain space I was in. I feel like there are definitely some of those days where you're in a contrary mood. And I definitely know when I'm in those contrary moods. And I know my journal reflects some of that sometimes. And then at the bottom, I really like this section because it is an opportunity to maybe pull from some of those wins, challenges, and favorite moments to then carry over into our intentions pages, because we can start reframing those as things we want to start, things that we want to stop, and then things that we want to continue. So again, here are some of those examples. The one on the left, I like that. Again, the start, stop, and continue, but then asking that why, digging a little bit deeper to understand the why and the how, and how you can kind of incorporate it. Or again, maybe it's like big kind of general ideas that you're then going to pull and become a little bit more specific in those weekly pages. And then again, another the example of the what, why, and how. And again, these can also be kind of more of the bullet style kind of to-do lists. They can be general ideas, or maybe again, it's more of a sticker vibe. Sometimes, especially if I've had a rougher month than I would like to have, putting a big sticker on some of these things, because again, I know it's there. And so, again, being able to acknowledge it, but acknowledge how I want to do it. So again, out of sight, out of mind sometimes works with some of the situations, or how can I kind of build that, repurpose it. And then here again, some more examples. I just think you guys have such amazing handwriting. And so I get a little jealous of that, but it just looks really nice. And I think there is just kind of that moment of just sitting with your thoughts and putting it on the page of kind of how you see what it went, how it went, and what we can do going forward. And then again, the one on the bottom was recently posted, and I like the idea of zooming in on specific focuses. So in the start category, it's they want to start a new morning routine. In the stop, it's allowing distractions, and in the continue, the good housekeeping. So then they've brought those into specific tasks that they can then carry over directly into the weekly planner. I am a big fan of setting yourself up for success. I always past self one of those past self people that kind of came up with a plan, so future self was really happy with it. So I think that's another one of those of being able to kind of add these breadcrumbs, knit all these three things together, so that you can carry over from page to page. But also there are just some situations or some circumstances where you're like, I don't have the brain power to knit all these pages together. I just want to answer the questions on page 8 and then turn and answer the questions on page 9 and kind of move that way. But what we're here for when it comes to the socials is not only that community support, but the inspiration, and also just kind of getting ourselves out of some of those funks, revolution time, as well as inspiration. So I'm going to give you guys some time to work on this. I would love to hear your reflections from January, maybe some of those start, stop, and continues, and we'll see you. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. And it sounds like January was a bit of a ride for a lot of folks, which I feel like that's one of those. It can be tough, and at the same time, there can be some kind of bright spots there. But what is really special about the socials is just being again able to share that and realizing that you are not alone in some of those thoughts and feelings and kind of experiences. Not to say that everybody is the same when it comes to some of those, but it is always nice to know that when you're feeling down is that there's someone out there also kind of going through something at least a little bit similar and some kind of comfort in that. And that's what makes, again, the live socials really nice. So now that we have acknowledged what was January, we are going to flip the page over to page 9 and set up some intentions. So, how we want our February to turn out. I like the idea of being able to kind of manifest this a little bit, take a little bit of that kind of optimistic control of what the month can bring. Because again, I always say it, I've got a science background, especially when it comes to analytics and those type of things. So I love the idea of being able to control some of the variables to kind of receive some of these because they're going to be variables out of your control, but you can always do some of it. And maybe your controlled variables will outweigh those new variables. So you're still coming out with a positive outcome. So we're again on page 9, and here are our set categories: the spiritual health, personal life, physical health, key relationships, money management, and professional goals. But just because these are the categories that have been framed in this template does not mean you need to use these as categories. What I love about this is you can always ask yourself, what do you need? What do you want? What supports your goals? So we not only have examples for how people approach the intention pages as a whole, but we have some examples for repurposing some of these categories. So as always, you can kind of reframe this under the theme of admiration to kind of set your intentions. Maybe you want to focus on things that you can be proud of or ways that you can show and acknowledge what you admire in some of those things. So you can certainly make that kind of the task orient there. But again, maybe it's also pulling in some of that self-love and self-talk. So maybe it's adding some of those things that you can be proud of in each of those categories. You can always use the name of song, lyrics, quotes for inspiration. And sometimes, again, it's just asking yourself, how do you want to feel this month in each of these areas or in each of these categories? How do you want to make progress to maybe feel a different way? Again, some of those variables that you can change. And then this is one of those really, I think, fun pages that they can definitely be in the vein of it is strictly kind of where I need to get my ideas down, where I need to put a focus point, or maybe it's I need a break from some of that. So I want to be a little bit more open-ended. I want to bring in some of the stickers, the colors, the imagery to add a little bit more of that extra pizzazz or extra inspiration. Or you can pull directly from those start, stop, and continue reflections that we just did on that other page and start incorporating that of how you can kind of turn those into actionable items to support each of these goal ideas. So as I said, you can repurpose these categories. So the one in the middle section is like, and maybe instead of physical health, you want to focus on mental health, heart health, brain health, or whatever specific healthcare journey you're on. Maybe instead of personal life, it's more of your creative life, your home life, or personal fun, personal hobbies, key relationships. I have found it a little bit easier to define which relationships. Is it your relationships with family members, your work relationships, or is it your partner relationships, or maybe a specific friend group? So I have found in some of those things, it's a little easier to define it. So I definitely just simplify it by taking a pen, marking it out, and rewriting it. Maybe instead of spiritual health, it's more of mental health, or maybe you want to add kind of an admiration component there. And same thing with the money managements, or we also fully are aware that a lot of people are in different milestones in their life. So maybe professional goals is not where you're at. Maybe it's a learning goal, education goal, creative, gardening, hobbies, kind of you name it. But again, do not feel like you're limited to these particular categories. You can, again, make adjustments for what you need. So now we get into the great examples. I love the seesaw duality of things. So being able to acknowledge something that you want to do, but then something you're going to let go of on the flip side. Same thing with thinking you want to bring in more of something and then reduce something, so more or less than something else. And I've really kind of had to shift in my head that rest and refresh are vital. It's not a waste of time. It is not having a plan. So the idea of doing an action, so of movement, a concept, what are you doing? But then on the other side is what are you doing to then refresh, recharge, or rest? So again, that kind of duality of ideas is, again, like I said, for me, admiration is a very actionable theme, but we just can't keep acting and doing without some sort of resting. So I think it becomes that acknowledgement of how can we incorporate rest and refresh into that while still supporting our goals there. While we love to say that we are breaking up with perfection, there is the full acknowledgement that maybe you're not quite ready to commit to some of these intentions yet. So you have the temporary version, or you have a kind of longer term goal that these are different pieces to incorporate. So feel free to grab out those post-it notes, some of those other things that you can kind of write and commit to, or you again can transfer them from month to month. You don't need to come up with something new each month. A lot of these are how can you continue to build on the routines that you're wanting to establish? And sometimes that is bringing kind of previous concepts that worked, making some little adjustments with either the new kind of parameters that you're working under, but being able to kind of figure it out, not quite commit yet. And it also gives you an opportunity to change it up. If you realize that your month you were planning on zigging and it's doing a lot of zagging, and so now you need to kind of alter course. Um, Again, liking the idea of embracing something and releasing something. And then the one on the right goes a little bit more into the details of you want to feel something. And so this is how you're going to work on it. And these are the direct habits that you're going to pull into your monthly habit tracker or even your weekly habit tracker. So again, providing yourself a little bit of a blueprint for how you want to set up your future pages. And then you got some really great quotes. Again, that duality of do things and avoid things. Maybe that's kind of the direction you're wanting to go. And then sometimes it's just stickers and a general idea, but I do love the creativity and the story that stickers can tell. Sometimes, pictures are worth 1,000 words. So instead of writing 1,000 words, you can certainly put some inspirational stickers there. They want to be used, they want to be expressed, but being able to put those together, and that's just another way of, cueing in your brain to respond to those. And I think that's a good maybe shift if you need a little bit of a shake up. So the one on the right I like because again, they only went with four. And not only did they go in with four categories, it was those categories that they wanted to do, and they changed some of them. Mine is actually the one on the left. My theme for this year is kind of a back to basics. I've just realized that in trying to find wholeness and completeness, I have lost some of those kind of fundamental building blocks that I feel like made me complete, made me happier, all of those things. So I went back to this back to basics, and Leanna McGowan in one of the previously weekly socials brought into this concept of core. And so that was core stands for create, order, reach out, and enjoy. So I have defined the different core components that I want to focus on for each of the categories. You can see that I repurposed two of the categories. Instead of spiritual health, for me, it's going to be mental health, just in a little bit of a dark funk. And it's only because, again, sun's not out. I'm basically a glorified houseplant. So I'm a little bit in the hibernation, and I need to get mentally out of the hibernation. And then instead of professional goals, it's education goals. So again, these aren't like the literal translation, but for me, it was like the queuing in, what are the things I want to create? How do I want to organize it or put it in order? And then the reach out is also how do I want to connect? What stumbling blocks do I think I'm going to need to reach out for? And same thing of acknowledging the things that I want to sit back and enjoy about it. So that's the direction I have gone. Let you know how it works. And then again, more stickers. And then the one on the right, I'm a big fan of because again, that's the idea of this manifestation, and kind of taking a little bit more of the ownership with the prediction, looking into the crystal ball and saying, this is what's going to happen. And then being able to build again, those follow-on pages to support, this is what's going to happen. I like the idea of that kind of intentional optimism of this is where we're starting. And whatever comes our way, we're going to be able to adjust those variables week to week so that we can still reach those goals so that come the end of February, we have met some of these intentions. So I am going to stop talking. I'm going to let you guys work on these intentions, but I would love to hear, are you repurposing them? Are you focusing on a few? Are you going sticker crazy this go around? But would love to see that in the chat if you want to share. But if not, I'll let you get to work on it. See you soon. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. And as always, there is no right or wrong way to journal. I feel like it's one of those that we have a lot of really great examples. I love examples, they make me really happy. But it's also just, again, that inspiration that I use. But honestly, a lot of these examples are not something that I could personally incorporate in my routines just because of the way I think. And so sometimes it is just zooming back out and asking yourself, what do you need? Because sometimes it can be a little overwhelming to want to fill in all of the pages and all the sections, but keeping in mind that burnout does exist. And sometimes what you really need is a break from some of these pages. So I have always diligently been a bit of a habit tracker and a mood tracker girly. And it was always the intentions and the reflections that would kind of take a little bit of a back seat. But then there are other times where I completely shift and realize that I want to focus a little less on the monthly trackers and more on the weekly trackers. So it definitely becomes this little bit of ebb and flow. And I think a lot of it is giving yourself grace and permission to kind of go on those different journeys to see what's going to work for you. And don't always feel, again, don't compare yourself to everybody else. But it's, again, one of those, sometimes the answer is more, sometimes the answer is less, and sometimes it's just a blank page. And being, again, a little bit more confident in those decisions. So now that we have set up our intentions, we can now, again, you can keep the intentions just as they are, or you can pull some of them over to kind of incorporate some of those different trackers. And you can, again, pull some of those little steps to feed those to-do lists and those intentions that you have. So please join us on page 10 in your February journal. And we're going to start with the mood tracker. And so again, I like this particular reminder because I'm definitely one of those. I will hold on to a mood or an emotion or a situation. I am a rehasher, and I am definitely one of those. But the acknowledgement of don't let one setback color your day. It's the pause, the feel it, and then keep going. I feel like you got to hold the space for it because there's so many times where work has just sent me through the roof and I just need to walk away and behave myself and then come back with a little bit better reflection or just kind of adding a note and being able to do that. So I always keep that in the back of my mind when it comes to moods. And I do like the character here, the two moods. I have a hee and a not hee. And I feel like that's just kind of been my vibe recently. I'm either one or the other and nothing in between. So with the mood tracker, you can choose some of those feelings that you want to track. You can do 2 to 3 of the maybe less positive ones, one a little bit more in the middle, or and then kind of 2 to 3 on the positive end. You can always focus on admiration. You can fill in every emotion that came that day or just the one that's the strongest. And this, again, is another one of those areas that you can certainly get quite creative. I don't worry, I will come back to this. This is our very classic feelings wheel if you need some of that inspiration. I will say my moods tend to be the same. And what a part of what benefited me from the mood tracker is that I was picking these like really negative, very, very strong negative emotions. And then on the flip side, the very, very positive opposite end of the spectrum. And I was realizing that I was living in this roller coaster because when I was getting really, really ragey, I was embracing the rage and I was staying very ragey the rest of the day. And then on the flip side, I was looking for that, like, completely excited, completely ecstatic. And I realized that that was kind of wearing me out. So I went a little bit more, I called it more of a frustrated and I called it more of a content or a confident. And I realized by acknowledging that, my roller coaster got a little flatter and I was a little bit happier across the board because I wasn't experiencing those major swings that I was already experiencing anyway. I just wasn't tracking it and focusing in on it, which was a win. And then again, I like the idea of thinking a little bit more, maybe less of a circle, more of a square. And I feel like the color corresponding with the particular feelings, and you've got the negative versus the positive, and what we would consider the low emotion and the low energy versus higher energy emotions. So again, just another way to think about it if your brain works a little bit this way. And then, as always, we love repurposing these. Maybe you want to track your affirmation. Maybe you want to use it for a specific part of your routine. And what I love about this is you can actually track multiple variables, there it is again, to see if there's kind of a causation between the two or even a correlation. Because in the moment and in that day, you're feeling certain things, but then being able to zoom out at the end of the month and kind of, again, take that data and find those trends, I think is wonderful. And I think it's amazing because I think, again, those are those adjustments that you can do. And maybe they fall into the start and the stop and somewhere in the continue category. So again, here are some of those really nice examples. Someone is tracking their panic attacks. And again, you get to come up with the legend for this, the criteria, the number acknowledgement there. You get to kind of come up with that yourself. Same thing with how you track your emotions. Maybe it is multiple colors, maybe it is just one, it is the stronger things. Maybe you want to correlate your emotions and your energy. And then again, stickers are always great. Maybe you want to focus on your physical care. So you're looking at these specific things. Maybe it's more of your activities. And then the one on the right, I am a big fan of just because that visual, they turn them into string of lights. Each color represented a specific emotion. So you have those now like acknowledgement of the different emotions that you had through the day. But at the end of the day, it's still a really pretty string of lights. And then you have some people that were doing food trackers, energy trackers, another anxiety one. And then for some of those completely flipping the idea of maybe instead of a mood tracker, it's a book tracker. And then as always, like I said, let's help ourselves. So the intentions tracker at the bottom, I think is great because we have those 6 categories that we just used there. You can now pull them over into your intentions tracker so that you're acknowledging each of those intentions or working on each of those intentions each day, being able to kind of track it that way. And then the one on the left reminds me of Inside Out with the emotion and feelings bubbles. So again, you can track multiple feelings per day. The bigger the bubble, the bigger the feeling. And then same thing with maybe you again want to focus on something else. We have a lot of our, entrepreneur types. And so the idea of turning this into business habits or a business tracker, I know there's a mood tracker, but the habits are tracked on a different page, but being able to correlate that here with the business things that you're going to accomplish. So you can kind of narrow it down that way, the different things that we want to spread out for each month to do so. And then the idea of a creativity tracker, so being able to put that there. The stress tracker, but also not only acknowledging adding a numerical value to those different things, but how can you de-escalate the stress using that idea there, depending on how stressed are we feeling. You can kind of incorporate those things. And again, maybe I saw someone mention that they had used a spending tracker. Here's a more focused spending tracker. I certainly repurpose the expense and sleep trackers. Those have never really worked for me in that capacity. And then sometimes it's just working through, did you have a tough day or did you have a great day? And being able to acknowledge some of those small wins because you probably remember vividly those tough days, but probably realizing at the end of the month that you've actually probably had more great days than tough days. Sometimes that can be just kind of a good thing to see. Maybe you want to focus on a self-care. So those are more of those 7 types of rest. Kind of kicking off one of those 7, but you can do focus on those. And then again, maybe it's a workout. And then the idea of a mood tracker or a replenishment tracker, the boosting. So being able to bring in those things because you've already acknowledged or you've already used the mood tracker to understand your types of moods. And so I know that's a lot, but I'm going to give you time to work on this mood tracker. Would love to hear the moods. Do you do the moods or are you a repurposer? And we will see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. So now we are going to head to that next page for the habit tracker. So again, we can pull from some of those start, stop, and continue that we used in the January reflections page, and then we then incorporated into our February intentions to then kind of add that directly to the kind of the how are we going to do this. And so please join us on page 11 in your February journal. And so this is one of those things you can absolutely continue with the theme, or you can pick another type of theme. Maybe it's a calming, a joy, a delight, or a grounding. And then I am a creature of habit, so I carry over a lot of my habits from month to month. I've had the same 3 habits at the top of the page, which is move, journal, and read every single day. That's what I do. That is what I love. That is the 3 things that I want to do every single day. And then when I pull them into my weekly pages, that is where I add the the realism, the lens of reality, which is what's the weather going to be like? What's my workload going to be like? What am I doing for my hobbies? What other activities do I have planned? But there are still those things that I want to get done every single day. And so a lot of those times they're going to be the same. But then I always like to incorporate something fun, something new, or something different. Um, and so here are some fun ideas. Again, I've got some more examples. And then again, I'm a big visual fan, so being able to kind of incorporate the creativity that I know a lot of you have, or maybe challenge yourself to some of that creativity. But what I like about the one on the left is the acknowledgement that they were unwell for 4 of those days. So being unwell or wanting to, again, on the positive end of being on vacation, being on a holiday, or even just wanting to take a break and be more present, being able to acknowledge that here, giving yourself the grace to not always meet all of those habits when something changes or you need to kind of change your focus. Same thing, the one on the right, again, you can come up with your own criteria for establishing this, but being able to, again, maybe you need the break from vacation, or maybe you need these fundamental things to get you through the vacation. But being able to set it up that way, I think is really helpful and really supportive. And again, you can keep them pretty general and then pull them into those weekly pages where it becomes more of those specific things. The one on the left is a little bit more focused onto routines. And again, just because there are all of those lines there does not mean you need to fill in all of those 7 lines. So the first one, again, is more of their kind of morning routine and then focusing on something else, but also being able to acknowledge, like the one on the right, is that your weekdays may look a little bit different than your weekends. So being able to kind of adjust and incorporate kind of different habits for each of those different days, I think is really great. But also I like the one at the bottom of that one, grace when needed. So that's acknowledging that maybe you didn't quite hit those goals that you wanted for the day, but that's okay. There are so many things we can control and there's so many things that we can't control. So being able to kind of put that there, one, so you can kind of fill in the space and a little bit of that satisfaction of marking it through. But I think it's also a good acknowledgement of sometimes you're just kind of tracking the wrong things that you needed that month. There have been many times I've had this really great idea and this lofty habit that I want to do, and I realize that it's not something I can incorporate on a regular basis to turn it into a general routine. Or it was also just one of those like, I don't know what past self was thinking, and maybe we needed to make those type of adjustments. So I think that also becomes a really great kind of acknowledgement, and again, a good data collection point. Again, here's that kind of counter to the previous one with the different Christmas lights, or Christmas lights get a makeover the rest of the year, and those are fairy lights. So you can incorporate it there again. Just that visual motivation, I think, is there. The one on the right, I know, is Bailey's, one of our other facilitators. And again, I feel like that's kind of helping ourselves in this category. Is so she's categorized the things she wants, also acknowledging that she didn't use all 7, but it makes it a little bit easier. So if you need to replenish her, the activities she already has listed in that kind of to-do list format. So she knows that when she wants to do a physical care activity, a nourish activity, or a replenishment, she already has those answers there of things that you want to do. So help yourself with some of those notes, but it also makes it a little bit easier as you're sitting here with your intentions and coming in with that kind of motivation So then you can kind of start to incorporate each of those. So as you pull them into your weekly tracker, maybe again, you're pulling in the physical care, the nourish, and the replenish. Then you already have your answers of what activities you're going to do specifically each week. And you can kind of change it up, get excited about it, incorporate new ones without that kind of extra brain power needed each week. Maybe you want to focus a little bit more on a celebration tracker. Maybe this is absolutely going to be an admiration tracker. So it's those things that you can get excited about. And again, they can be actual tasks, or they could be a little bit more on the kind of squishier idea of, maybe it's the kind of affirmation style, or the positive self-talk, or again, that kind of grace category. The one on the right, similar to kind of writing the answers down that you already have, so you can be thankful. And then again, I'm always wanting to, sometimes you kind of want to just connect a little bit more with your journal. The one on the left is definitely a journal habit focused one. So they want to do the reflections, the dailies, the affirmations, the goals, and the rituals each and every day. And then they want to acknowledge their gratitude log. Then they want to check in with that mood and creativity tracker that they repurposed from the mood tracker. And then carrying that over into the weekly habits and goal pages. So you can certainly use these things to help you connect with your journal if that's what you need. And then you can kind of, oh, and Jennifer put in there, they're color coded for the weeks. She's so great. And then the one on the right is one that I used for my MBA semester workload. I was just struggling pulling those into my normal routine. So I broke it down into the the video modules that I had to do, the online lectures, then the progress through the projects that I needed to work on. That was amazing. So I also highly recommend, this is a great template if you want to focus on something very specific. So again, maybe you've got something coming up. Maybe you are working on some sort of education goal. Maybe you have upcoming work, something that requires a very centralized focus with a lot of moving pieces. So that's where I feel like this was quite helpful. And as I said, I'm a very visual person as well. I love the iconography that can be associated with this. So there are just kind of some additional things to look forward to in February that you can somehow incorporate it into your habits. And then I love the self-care reminders here of ways that you can repurpose and function on, again, to maybe add in a kind of less tangible and a little bit more kind of squishy, more for that kind of mental or emotional support maybe needed for the month. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to let you all finish up. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Can you believe that we have reached the end? Marianne, is it this slide or the next one? Just want to make sure we do it. But thank you, everybody, for joining us. Can you believe that we have reached the end? Okay, Marianne, I'll go through those once I close out so we can move it forward, but we'll get all those back for you. But because we are at the end, we would love to see your pages in the Silk and Sonder app and continue the conversation there. You guys provide such amazing inspiration and brilliant ideas. We thoroughly enjoy that. So again, if you're comfortable sharing, we would love to see those. And again, one of our current new offerings comes around this 24/7 personalized coaching, which is AI generated, essentially your go-to facilitator. Her name is Jenny. Meha is hosting a free live demo in the event there. So if you are even remotely interested, or if you're even already doing it, it's going to be some of those new features, all of those things. And there'll also be some additional codes to use for potential discounts. But if you're thinking about it, definitely attend if you can. It'll be recorded, but would love to see each and every one of you there. This is the snapshot of the playlist that I had. Don't worry, I will include the Spotify link in the chat. But as always, thank you so much for joining us on a Friday night. I can't believe it went by so quickly, but I am so excited to close the chapter on January 2025 and move forward to February with each and every one of you. I am proud of each and every one of you for setting aside this time to focus on you. And I hope to see you at a future event, and we will see you soon. Bye.
I miss the me that I was before I knew everything. No. So lost but unafraid. And it's sad to see myself stop believing in who